Hi everyone, welcome to Ecommerce Exchange. This is our podcast where we talk about everything online, retail and marketing. Today we are really happy to have with us Tara Tomes of East Village PR. Hi Tara.
Hi, thanks for having me.
No problem, thanks for coming on. And also Lewis, hi there.
Hi Matt, you okay?
Yes, very well, thanks. So I was just going to do a bit of an intro to you, Tara. So firstly, I'm Matt Allen Esquire. That's the end of that. And I noticed on your email signature, you are Tara Tomes, MD of East Village PR, PR and marketing consultant, founding member of the Black Leaders Network, non-exec director of the Tag Network Midlands, co-founder of Birmingham Sales and Events Forum, committee member of Midlands Retail and Hospitality Forum, founding trustee of Let's Feed Brum. You're on the management committee of iShelter. You're the patron of Seaford Fireside, and you're on the regional development board of Breast Cancer Haven. Is there anything else?
You have really shown me up there, haven't you? I am that person that joins all the committees for a good email signature. No, nice. I'm not. And I do sleep. I do also sleep. That is about it, I think.
Have you ever had it read back to you in a list like that?
No, but I like it. I might do that now when I enter Zoom calls and get one of the team to just come on in, like, this is Tara, our MD, and all things.
I recommend you make all of those things an acronym and just put them at the end of your... I never went to university or anything, so I don't have any of those, the acronyms that you get at the end of the email signatures.
I need to start using some of those, don't I, actually? Yeah, and then
free
PR for a year for anyone who guesses the full suite of what the acronyms are.
Yeah, there you go. That in fact is a good PR thing in itself, isn't it? It's quite a good hook there.
Okay. This is how all the good PR ideas happen, in a podcast and in your intro. So yeah, you found it.
Well, welcome. Thank you for coming on. That is an impressive resume. So I just thought today we could talk about, I don't know, it's been a funny year for everybody. I think we're kind of coming out the other side of that hopefully, but I was interested in talking to you about your business and how that's gone over the past year and how your experience with your clients has gone, and perhaps how PR might have changed during that time and if it's going to fundamentally change the landscape going forward and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I guess at risk of anyone that is younger than me, because now I feel extremely old at 34, labelling me toxic positivity or whatever the new term is, actually the last 12 months for us have been quite great. Now, I don't know if that is a mindset thing. I don't know if that is a real proactive thing. I guess if we rewind back to this time last year, we lost, so we were just going into the first lockdown. As a PR agency, we retail leisure hospitality predominantly. So as you can imagine, that first week we lost like 50% of our revenue gone in a heart. Week one done. So that was a bit of a shocker. And I did that day, I think I gave up at about 2:00 in the afternoon. And I was like, I'm just going to have a little time out and a little breath. And then I just woke up the next day and I was like, right, we got this. We're just going to keep pushing. So, of course, like everyone, it was such a weird time to navigate. We're a really young team, mobile anyway, as we're always in meetings and here, there and everywhere. Everyone's on laptops anyway. I'd got everyone working from home the week before lockdown started. Mm-hmm. But that transition itself was relatively easy. Slack, Monday, Zoom, that helped us all kind of feel connected. But definitely having a young team, it was a real shift for them. I love working from home. I like the fact that I have a bit of peace and quiet. I can focus so much more. I love the buzz of the office, but there is definitely something in working from home for me that has really helped my productivity, or I thought it did. Mm-hmm. So it was about that, the team and how we started to adapt and all of those things. So, I think you can go one way or the other when you are facing a pandemic that you think is only going to be 3 weeks. Remember that? Last 12 plus months. You can ride it out operationally and stay quite quiet and just keep your house in order and just get through it. I know lots of agencies that were like, we're just going to get through this. That is not the East Village way. We were like, how do we find the opportunity in this? How do we make sure we're kind of out there and doing things and doing great things? So we spend a lot of time, you know, free webinars, free advice. How do we kind of step up at a time when people need it most? So that is exactly what we did. Even a couple of months into lockdown, we launched Pocket Size PR, which is an initiative specifically for small businesses. I'd kind of seen over the last year or so anyway, such a rise in this DIY PR. You know, there are some brilliant people out there like Lucy Werner and her book Hype Yourself, which I recommend to everybody. It teaches you how to do all of the things that we essentially get paid to do, or people think we do. So that sharing of the trade secrets, the tips, the templates, suddenly we just gave all of that resource for free. And we then kind of went against every agency model that there has ever been, and kind of just put some prices out there for small businesses, tailored packages, PR and social media for small businesses. It was the time that they needed it most because they didn't have that infrastructure around them, but it was a massive, massive opportunity, as we have now seen, you know, 12 months on. Just look at how much we all care about supporting small independent businesses. That shop local message has mattered like never before, and that won't go. Yes, we will all return to the high street. Yes, we will return to what we think is normal life. But I think that is always going to stay in people. You know, if you look at even online retailers like Thoughtful, you know, Thoughtful had been around for a long time and not ever really talked about the fact that they are supporting independent designers. It has absolutely become the strapline and the messaging because people know that's what resonates. And that is something that we have seen in PR really, really come into its own over the last 12 months, like never before. So, you know, I think before there was definitely something around feeling like you want to challenge the big boys, challenge the multinationals, whereas now there has been a real shift in actually owning your space, owning the fact that you're an independent, whether you're a one-man band or a small business. We've really seen that come into its own with PR, and I think that's going to be something that we see for a long time to come. Because actually that's what PR is all about. Ultimately, PR is about a story. It's about you telling your story, and what better way to do that than understand person to person what that business owner's journey is, and understand as a consumer what you buying their product or service truly means to that person and the people that work for them, and their stories that the big boys can never tell in the same way. That, you know, they find different stories to tell, and that's great, but they will never be able to rival that. So yeah, that's been a really exciting time for PR in terms of looking after and supporting small businesses and seeing what happens next for them, for sure.
I think what you said, it's really interesting to me. We talk to a few people, and obviously talking to clients all the time about, you know, this period of time. We had not a dissimilar, not necessarily as a business, but certainly as a marketing department, had a similar story, like right at the beginning. There is still this really odd thing that happens with brands where when the budgets get tight, they cut marketing.
Every time.
Like I genuinely can't understand the logic of it, because that is the thing that makes you money. Or if it's not making you money, you're not doing it right, essentially, especially now with digital being so intrinsically linked with results. You can't hide from that. But that does lead me on to a question, and I'm hoping you can answer this. And it's a really basic question. So you're going to have to excuse my ignorance on it.
On the spot.
But what is PR? And I ask this because I've worked in a few different agencies over my time, and old school creative agencies that have a PR department, they pitch to clients and their results are based on some crazy calculation about how much it would cost you to buy that space in a newspaper, for example. But of course, digital is in existence, and digital PR is its own thing. Some PR agencies are saying social media is a PR thing. So I think it's a little bit messy. And I think actually from my experience of what PR was circa 10 years ago, it's probably very different to what it is now. So when I ask the question, what is PR? I genuinely mean it. What is it to you now? What are you selling? What are you putting forward to clients?
So PR is really messy, very messy as a concept, because you understand the concept of advertising. Advertising, you are broadcasting your message to people. Then we come to this kind of strange grey area that is marketing, which might be your SEO and your pay-per-click. It might be your social media. Really, if you take what PR is, it is just managing your publics. That's exactly what it is. So when I talk to people about PR, I always really go in on who's your audience, who are you trying to talk to? And I think this is exactly where PR has fallen down for many, many, many years, because people don't understand what their return on investment is with PR, because they're just that spray and pray. Well, we just want press coverage. And actually, that's not what PR is about. It's about understanding your audiences and getting to their hearts and minds through the right channels. So yes, wherever they may be, sometimes that is going to be reading The Guardian. Sometimes that's going to be reading Stylist magazine. Other times it is going to be them on social media. So what you use for PR is relying on somebody else, whether that is a journalist or an influencer, and getting them to tell your story through their eyes. And so it's got a real credibility around it that you don't get with advertising and marketing in the same way, because you are controlling the message there. You're controlling what you broadcast out. And yes, with social media, you're controlling your channels and you can build a community, but you can never quite get the same buy-in as if somebody's favourite influencer genuinely picks up your product and uses it, or somebody reads your book review but from their favourite writer. Sorry, the dog just stormed in. You know,
He's obviously heard the controversial things you're saying about PR, and
literally, he's like, hang on.
Here saying, I'm not having any of this. It's only based on how much you get in the paper. That's it.
Well, that's it. He's like, hang on a minute. But that's it. You know, PR is public relations. That's exactly what it is. So knowing your audience and where they are, completely crucial to what PR is going to work for you. And that's why I think we've had such a strange time around, well, is the death of PR because it's the death of the newspaper? Well, no, because that is one channel. What on earth do you mean?
I mean, people have been predicting the death of something for forever now, right?
Absolutely. If they could just predict the death of coronavirus, that'd be great, and we could all.
That'd be a good one.
But it's absolutely true, you know. And I think much like everything, and more so in today's society, people seem to be really kind of definite about decisions and things. And so it's either that you're going for traditional print, or traditional print has died and that's it forever. That's not the reality, you know. PR is a mix of media. It's a mix of channels that work, but it is very, very messy, because some PR agencies like East Village will also do social media management. So you're like, well, does that not sit with someone else? And then SEO agencies talk about being digital PR. So yeah, it has kind of given itself a grey area without a doubt. You know, we've done it to ourselves. There's no denying that.
It's fairly typical of all marketing, I think. You mentioned SEO there. We constantly have conversations with clients about the fact that we are fully aware that SEO has a dark and shadowy history of people doing stuff in the background and really not doing very much at all, or just writing blogs, or, you know, and I'm sure the same exists in PR and, you know, advertising. You can't get away from the fact that we were once an industry that was convincing people that cigarettes were good for you. You know, it definitely has a bit of a history. You mentioned influencers, and it's an area where we always tread very carefully. And I think just personally is tread very carefully. I'm sure you agree. Like, I think the best advertising is stuff that is really authentic. And there's a real fine line to tread there when you're selling things that people don't necessarily need, but maybe want. But in your opinion, where does influencers fit into the mix, and how do you approach that as a tactic? Because I think we've seen it be impactful in the right situations, but we're also very, very cautious about utilizing it as a broad tactic. And you know, definitely not just putting it with someone who's got 2 million followers, for example.
Yeah, influencers, you know, forever, that is how PR works. We are influenced by people's opinions. We are influenced by what our friends buy and see and do. That we are a society, even more so now with social media, that is influenced by everything around us. And suddenly everything around us is not just our immediate circle. It's not our friends, family, where we live. Everything around us is suddenly the world. So influencers have an incredibly important position when it comes to power and selling a product or service. But yes, picking your influencer is the most crucial part. When bloggers were kind of first a thing, it was all about the numbers. Everyone assumed if someone, you know, there were a few, if you take the fashion industry, there were a few kind of massive fashion bloggers that had 1 million followers, which back then just seemed like unreal. And so you had to get to them. They were the people, because if you had 1 million people following you, that would be 1 million more people than your account that you haven't set up yet. We know that's not how it works. You know, for us, a lot of the time, micro-influencers, so, you know, even talking about 5,000 to 8,000 followers, can be way, way more effective because they have built a following based on a certain thing, if it's food or a lifestyle. You know, the best influencers really are the ones who have a following that buy into their lifestyle, that buy into their everyday. But then you have this grey area around what's real and what's paid for. And so suddenly you've got this, in the same way you do with a journalist. You know, if you are reading about a new craft beer in Waitrose magazine, you are putting your trust in that journalist that they have tried that beer, think it's great, and that is why they're including it in their listings of the top 5 new beers to try. You put that trust into them, exactly the same as an influencer. Even if an influencer is doing a hashtag ad, you put your trust into them that it's genuine. And of course, how do you police that? How do you police that an influencer that was gifted a Peloton genuinely loves the Peloton, or are just telling you to buy it because they're getting a kickback for every sale that comes through their affiliate links? It's really hard, but that generally is the grey area of marketing, because so much of what we all do is paid for. You know, as a PR agency, someone's putting their trust into us that we haven't just taken a client on for the money, that actually their products and services do what they say. So, you know, with any transaction, there is a level of trust. I think you do have to tread really carefully with influencers. I think it's too easy for brands to say, that's the route we're going to go down because that's a success we see. And I would question, well, what success do you see? What, you know, it's gone from, you know, back in the day it was you had to see something 2.5 times or whatever for it to resonate and for you to buy. Now you're looking at like 25 times you need to be seeing something in various formats. So you have to hedge your bets. You've got to get yourself out there, but you also need to keep some level of control and monitor what success looks like. And that's the most important thing with influencers. You know, if you are working with them, you have to set those expectations. What do you just want them for brand awareness? Are you getting them to use your razor because you just want more people to see your razor brand, because you've then also got some ads and you've got some cool product placement? You know, is it part of a bigger picture, or are you expecting them to use your razor and drive website clicks? It's really, really important to set the tone and set that level of expectation, because if you don't know what success looks like, they're certainly not going to strive for it either. That's where a lot of brands fall down, for sure.
I'm going to point out that you've given 2 PR examples so far. One was craft beer and one was a razor. Now I feel like you might be saying something about me and Matt here. It's like a catchphrase, say what you see type situation. And you've gone for craft beer and razors.
And do you know what's really weird? I genuinely have not. It's because I have just tried a new vegan razor. I am not vegan, but I feel like I should do my bit for the planet. And it finally arrived today. It arrived at lunchtime. So that is why I talked about a razor. But
this is also Matt's favourite part of the podcast, where I say I am a vegan. And
Yeah, but normally you let me queue it up and say, "Are you a vegan, Lewis?" And then we go into 5 minutes about that we've got to cut out afterwards.
I'm a vegan. I'm not even sure what a vegan razor is. Presumably, it's a little soap strip.
No, it's like a normal razor but made with vegan-friendly products. I don't know. I'm not going to lie to you. It came up on my Instagram multiple times. I was like, we're coming out of lockdown, and so I should probably have shaved my legs at some point. Really cute. And I was like, you're cute and pink. You also happen to be vegan rather than tick from looking after the world. But I won't lie, it was really good Instagram ads and a really cute shade of pink.
I was going to say, was it through an influencer?
I think I've seen some influencers use them, yes. Thank you for pointing that out. I'm aware I am the worst because I'm very
I think it's always way worse when if you work in the industry and you never feel like you're clicking on an ad as a consumer. You always feel like you've been caught out. You think, oh, they've got me. Can't believe I've fallen for it.
And often I will be like, I'm just going to like that post because I know she got paid for it and I know it will just help her to have an extra like. So yeah, I'm terrible for that. I don't experience anything in the way a true consumer does anymore. Everything's ruined.
I'm completely immune to all of it, I've realised over the years.
Well, all advertising?
All advertising just
you've signed up to Beer 52 83 times in the past 2 years. And you just keep going to cancel. They keep offering you discount codes. You're absolutely...
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but I think I'm winning that because they give me the discount. I take the
That's what they want you to think, Matt, is that you're winning
that. Have they got me? Okay.
We got you. You're in denial about this. Like, got you. Like,
you're the worst because you're an unaware consumer. You're the one that thinks that advertising doesn't work on you. He says whilst drinking a sweet can of Diet Coke. Sorry, this is the tangent that Matt was talking about earlier, and I apologise. So, how do you kind of get around there was some stuff not too long ago about it's kind of labelled as influencer fraud, really. It's quite a strong word, that is, but people buying followers, people faking engagement, people, there's a whole variety of things where people have built up an audience that's not legitimate, and then obviously they're selling their service off the back of those numbers and those stats. What's your kind of approach to that in terms of who you use and how you establish whether they're a good fit for a brand?
Yeah, kids don't buy followers, not going to get you anything. Going back to expectations, you're setting a terrible level of expectation there if you're just telling someone you've got all these followers that you actually don't, and it's a bunch of bots that Instagram are going to go and delete next week. That's when it does become a real challenge. So actually, when we hit upon brands as an agency and they're brands that I would buy from, it's so easy. Because I'm like, right, well, I follow these influencers, like I've followed them for years, I really trust them, I like the products they work with. It's when you then get a brand that you're not the audience for, suddenly you're like, this is going to be a challenge, because you are then just flying blind. So you've got to then put the work in and don't just look at their follower numbers, look at the level of engagement that they're getting on posts, scroll through their followers. Are they all bots or do they look legit? And it's a lot of hard work, but that's when it goes back to making sure you have a team that is diverse in age, gender, cultural references, beliefs. That's really, really important, because how can you be truly representative if your business isn't and the people within it aren't? As a PR agency, that's a piece of work we're doing ourselves. So we're an all-female team. So I'm like, should probably change that.
It is quite difficult for men. I don't know if you're aware of the struggles that we go. Obviously, that's the ridiculous thing to say. I'm going to point out. That is a joke, people.
But, even if we just take this the last couple of weeks in the media, there is a different way of thinking. When my other half goes out and walks the dog by himself and I'm like, be safe, he looks at me every time like, all right, what are you talking about? And it's those simple things, those those, you know, those nuances, those behaviours, beliefs, habits that we're not aware of. And your job as marketeers, especially as PR people, if you're trying to literally get to the hearts and minds of people to encourage them to buy something, you have to understand, you've got to understand what goes on in their brain. You've got to understand what's going to land with them as a message. You know, for some customers, it is absolutely going to be seeing that list of the top 5 craft beer. Okay, cool. So we know that product placement's really, really key. For other people, their driver for a service is going to be seeing, you know, a founder in Forbes. You've got to understand not just where to put people, but then what a story is that's going to work. And that's, you know, I think brands, and I think because they go through that marketing process often, where it's like, what is your USP? And because we get people all the time come to us, I don't really know a USP. And I'm like, okay, I hate to be the person to break it to you, but USPs don't really exist. But just look at the bread aisle, tons of bread, and there's room for everyone. And people don't get it's about your story and how your brand fits into that. And I think people are really linear with what they think it's about. So they don't realize you can be one business selling one product, but you can have certain angles for certain people and it not fall over each other and it still seem coherent. And that's our job. That's when they come to us and we formulate that into a plan and we look at what that actual message is and the process of the message and the timescales and who we can collaborate and partner with and all those things. That's why I'm happy to do pocket size PR and give away all of our trade secrets, i.e. how to write a press release, because that is not the value of a PR agency. You know, you can learn to do those things yourself. The value comes from a different understanding of consumer behaviour and how you speak to people and how you make things land. That's where the value comes from.
And that's not something you can get. I think, like you say, all of that, if people really search, and this is the truth across all marketing, says to clients a lot, is like we're all using the same toolbox here, right? If you come to an integrated marketing agency, they're going to say SEO, PPC, paid social, organic social, email marketing, some UX work, PR. They're all going to say, we're all going to pull from that tool set. And I can talk about the framework that we've created and, you know, the fact that we focus on user journey, and all of that is true. The difference is the team of 12 we have at Eastside, your team, you guys don't have that. That's what you don't have. You don't have the people and the experience we have. And you can't learn 10 years of experience unless you've got 10 years of experience. It's just innate within that process. So there is no way to speed that up.
I'm agency, it's really important to also tell your story, and that's why I think lots of people fall down. You know, I say, would you go to a hairdresser with bad hair? Like, guys, no offense, but I'm not going to come to you as a hairdresser, like, for my hair. So it's exactly the same thing. If you look at a PR agency and you can't find anything about them online, they're not in the media, they're not doing cool stuff, then why on earth are you going to go to them? Now, some people on the flip say, well, because I think it's our job to deliver that for other people. And I'm like, no, you are also one of your clients. Like, you, and the best thing about doing it for yourself, you can try stuff and it doesn't matter if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You can experiment with your own brand and your own story, but you have to get that across, because in exactly the same way that we're saying our job is here because people buy from people, that same goes for businesses. You know, even when I hear people saying, well, we're B2B, and I'm like, yeah, but you're still a human talking to a human, and that connection has to be made. So that's why it's still really, really important as an agency to tell your story as well, because if you miss that, you're missing a huge opportunity. Yeah.
I'm keen to understand a little bit more about, you mentioned diversity and kind of inclusivity as all being massively important parts, not just with influencers and PR, but in general. You know, what's your approach to that in terms of, are you actively going out and looking for diversity and trying to pull that in? Is it something that you're just getting naturally because you have a more diverse workforce? You know, advertising historically is run by middle-aged white men. and that is changing, probably not as quickly as it needs to. But what is your approach to that? How are you approaching that subject?
Yeah, so the PR industry is even worse. So PR industry is like 98% white people, 87% of which are British, and that is the industry as a whole. So like in the UK, we're terrible. Now, the diversity space is a really, really interesting one because obviously I'm mixed race, but it has never formed part of my identity because it's never needed to. It's just not something that's on my radar. And it's interesting because you hear the conversations at the moment with lots of people who are like, I don't see colour, and they get jumped on, and I'm like, no, but wait a minute. I get that thought process of somebody's colour or their background is not the first thing that I identify with. So in PR, I have never considered that I am a woman and that I'm mixed race or any of those things. I do what I do and I love it. It doesn't matter. What I have done though, over the last, and it has been the last year in particular, is think about, hang on, if I don't think about those things and I therefore, I'm really open and say I have no knowing lived experience of racism. I mean, it might have happened, or I don't remember it, I don't recall it. And I was like, if I've had that journey and my mindset is what it is, then I think I've got a massive opportunity and responsibility to help other people have that same journey, regardless of their background or their race or their culture or their religious beliefs. And absolutely because of those things. So how do I step into that space? Now, as someone, I am just someone that believes in equality, full stop. So I've never thought to kind of actively, I guess, like promote it, be an activist for it. So that's quite a scary place to be, because you've got what you think of as people who are the activists, who are there absolutely at the front of protests on their social media, and they are shouting really loudly. And if you're not one of them and you feel like you don't know enough, it can be really scary to step into that space. But at some point, I think you have a responsibility to say, well, I'm going to learn as much as I can and sustainably make diversity, inclusion and belonging something that really matters to me in my business. So, people often talk about it being an all-female team. Is that on purpose? And I'm like, no, I've hired the best people for the jobs at the time. And yes, it has happened to be women. There are just more women that apply for our jobs. That is it. But actually, then you look at with how do you proactively encourage more men and more people of colour to come into your business? And that's the piece I'm on at the moment. So, we do loads in terms of colleges, universities, work experience placements, internships. That is something we have always done. I think people see us as quite a cool agency. But I think there are communities and just huge swathes of people who don't even know what PR and marketing is. And that is why the industries are traditionally white, middle-class people. So we as agencies have to proactively go into those communities from a young age. Think about when kids are thinking what I want to do in the future. If these jobs aren't on their radar, it's not about, we can have all of the amazing diversity policies, we can do blind recruitment, we can make sure that our jobs, our job descriptions really say that we're inclusive and flexible teams. But if those people aren't seeing those jobs and seeing our businesses, well then it's a pointless exercise, because all it is an internal tick box. And that's something that I'm really passionate about, is how do we make sure that we're proactively going to people, that we're not just doing good things in our business and expecting them to flock to us. And it's important. So, there are so many things I look at, and I look at our client base. Our client base is not diverse at all. And that's something we have to work on. We should be going for a much wider and more diverse range of businesses and business owners, because that is the world that we live in and that is the right thing to do. But it has to feel authentic. And I think you know, we're a business that is all about good values and always have been, and we've always been about strong team culture. So I've done a lot in the mental health and wellbeing space over the years and keep on doing that. But I think it can be a bit overwhelming because you don't want to seem insincere. You don't want to feel like it's a tick box, even more so at the moment when it's such a popular and trendy conversation. You don't want to seem like you're jumping on the bandwagon, but it has to be done. Change has to be done. You know, if you think about the last 12 months, we have seen a seismic shift in diversity and in conversations around racism. It's tiny, teeny tiny in the grand scheme of the problem. So if that's a seismic shift, like, just imagine how much work we actually have to do when you start to unpick everything that comes with that greater understanding. And, you know, and I'm really honest about that with people, because I think it's really important that people understand you can just be someone who wants to be a good person that believes in equality and still have loads to learn. I think social media makes it a really scary space because of cancel culture. You don't want to be jumped on by people telling you what you should be saying and shouldn't be saying. And I'm kind of stepping into that space on purpose to be like, guys, I'm holding my hands up here because I don't get it all fully, but I'm going to try, and let's all go on the journey together and not have people shout at us because we don't know enough. So yeah, I think that's really important for more people to speak up. But, you know, the reality is, for me as a PR agency owner in Birmingham, I think I'm the only mixed race PR agency owner. Could be wrong, they're going to come at me. So like no one else can step into the space. Like, I almost have to, but it's from a really decent place.
Have you found that response? Have you found it to be nothing too toxic coming back at you kind of from that approach?
Not really, but I'm sure it will happen. I've kind of, you know, so obviously I'm involved in the Black Leaders Network, and when I was invited to that by the amazing Joel Blake, he's incredible, and he is one of those people you're like, I wish I had your values and understanding and true drive for change. And when he invited me, I said, Joel, I'm really honoured you've asked me to be part of this group, but I can't bring lived experience to this. If that's what the group is about, I can't do that. And he said, no, that's not what it's about. Actually, it's about bringing leaders who are Black from across the city, across the professional services, and sharing best practice. I like progressive change. So, and it comes with everything. So if we talk about feminism, anything in the equality space, like, I don't want to sit in a room and moan with people about why the world's terrible. So that doesn't interest me. I want to work out how we make things better. And that's why with Black Leaders Network, that is exactly what it is. There is, yeah, of course, people are sharing, you know, I changed my personality for this, or actually I had someone who kind of sponsored me through my career that's helped me progress, and just interesting stories and anecdotes. But the outcome, the point of it, is to share, this is how we move forward. Here are businesses that are doing brilliant things and have been for years, that aren't just jumping on this bandwagon. This is how we can help other people do that. And that's the bit that I think is really important around the diversity piece, is sharing what we're all trying to do. So it encourages other people to say, look, it's not that difficult. A lot of it is common sense. That you can implement these things with minimal effort, and that's what it has to be about.
Nice. I just want to jump back. I think we're probably coming towards the end now, but I want to jump back to, you talked about giving away stuff for free and putting that content out there. One of the things that and of course this is with hindsight, noticed that a lot of brands are doing, a lot of businesses are doing, is lots of stuff that they probably should have been doing in the first place. Do you feel like, with hindsight, that the giving away of, you know, what is essentially your best content, your, you know, what you would see as your most valuable content, do you feel like that's something that, if you had your time again, you would have been doing despite the pandemic, despite the lockdown? Do you think you would have, you know, you would recommend that as a thing to people just out of the box anyway, because like you say, that those documents aren't what they're buying from you?
No, and we have done it anyway. I think all we did, the pandemic it probably just gave me the confidence to be like, YOLO, let's just do it. You know, literally came up with the name Pocket Size PR. Me and my account director, Hattie, my right hand girl, literally designed a logo in 30 seconds. And the next morning it was a page on our website. That's how quickly I work. Like, I've not got time to sit here and write a strategy about this. But now it's evolved and we're thinking about a new platform and new things we can do. But as a business, as a person, probably to my own detriment at times, like I can't help but say yes. So I am forever doing webinars, workshops, talks, if someone, and I'm always podcasts. And if people are like, oh, this was amazing, I'm like, DM me if you've got any questions, email me, like I'll help you, I'll give advice. So as a person, that is something that I think is valuable to do, because I think if you have a skill set, then why wouldn't you help people? I don't understand that mindset of why you wouldn't help people because you only want them to buy from you. And that is something that I've always done and encourage other people to do. I think especially when you are the founder of a business who starts to move away from the day-to-day, it becomes even easier because you have a team delivering the day-to-day and suddenly you become this kind of expert in the forefront who can talk about the subject in a much broader sense. It doesn't detract from the fact that you own a business that delivers those services, but giving away some of that content and brands doing those things. I think, you know, if the catalyst was the pandemic, cool. Yes, brands should have done it before, but equally, we could have been putting out all of that content and it not be received in the same way because people didn't think PR was as valuable as it was. You know, this is the first time really that we've seen essentially a recession and marketing come back just as quickly as it was taken off the budget. Because suddenly people realise I've got to be in that space. I need to be in the space of my competitors. I need to be in the space to keep my brand out there, even if there's nothing going on in the background. You know, for us, that first week when we lost that 50% client base, from literally the next week, we were winning clients and we won some of our biggest retainers in this 12 months. So we know the value of staying out there and staying present. And I think what's happened is brands have capitalized on where people are at mindset wise. And actually you could have given all this content away for free before, but would people have accessed it in the same way? Would people have been in the same place? So I think there's a lot to be said for the timing of businesses understanding why they should give some of their valuable content away that they wouldn't have had before.
Do you think that, because we talked earlier about this shift to supporting local independence and that kind of thing, you know, I feel that people revert to the norm quite quickly, but do you think that that could be a long-term, more permanent shift? Or do you think that will be forgotten?
Yeah, definitely. So I think one of the things we've seen when we were in first lockdown 1, lockdown 2.0, we were still referring to this new normal because we all had these kind of ideals and learnings, and we'd learned so much about ourselves and society and what really mattered. The problem is now we've been in this state for 12 months, so everyone is sick to death of not having freedom. So everyone now has glamorized the old way, and I'm like, do you all remember how tired you were and overworked and what that commute was really like? And that's the problem. We've passed the point of like epiphany, if you like, and we're now just like, just give me my old life back. But I do think there are certain things that will stick with people. And I think, you know, anything around finance, it's just whether you've had it good or bad, I think finance has been on, you know, everyone's mind and agenda, because if you have money, you want to make sure you're saving it for the next rainy day, like never before. Like financial advisors must be absolutely loving life at the minute, because everyone is suddenly like, okay, how am I a more sensible person that actually does set up my pension and does do these things? And I do think supporting local businesses will be something that I think that has been a shift, and I think it is something that's sustainable. It does not mean that ASOS and In The Style and brands like that are not going to thrive, but what I do think is when someone is walking down High Street, they might go into a shop that they don't know the brand name, they've never seen it before, they meet the owner, and actually they buy something from that shop, rather than popping next door to, I was going to say Topshop, that's not even a thing anymore, is it? But, you know, they are, I think people will change their habits around shopping, and that's going to happen even more. You know, anyone working in slow fashion has got a really exciting few coming up, I think, because I think the consumer mindset is shifting. I think our mindset around sustainability is changing, and, you know, Attenborough, God love him, has been talking about this for a very long time, and we've listened to, because we love him, but we haven't listened and taken action. Whereas now, I do think suddenly there is a shift towards what we have been told and taught for the last decade or two. So when it comes to that independent piece, that shopping local, does not mean that the chains won't get the business. I think it will just mean people are more conscious than they have been before.
I hope so. Yeah. And what about you guys? Are you, because you said earlier you've shifted to a fully remote model?
Yeah.
At East Village. Is that something that you are going to stick with, do you think, going forward, or do you think you'll go back to the offices?
So, and I think I made reference to, right at the beginning, we talked about working from home, that I found myself more productive when working from home, or so I thought. And the so I thought is because I thought I didn't really like being tied to an office. What I don't like is being tied to anywhere. Now I'm tied to my house. I'm like, somebody let me out. Like, anyone, anywhere, let me into a coffee shop. And actually, it's about that flexibility. And because, you know, I've run this business for 7.5 years, I've always been here, there, and everywhere. I don't think I've ever had one week when I've sat at my desk in that office every single day of the week, because I've always got meetings and I've got here. And I always say to the team, get out and just see the world. How can you communicate to people if you are not seeing people in normal environments? And actually, I think there was a pressure around, oh yeah, I like that idea, but like, I actually need to be in the office because this is where the team are and this is where we have meetings. Whereas now, that pressure has gone. But, you know, as much as obviously my face was plastered all over everywhere with the flexible working piece, good bit of PR for us, thank you. And it was amazing, but actually there was just a really non-sexy version there, that our lease was up and I just needed to make a decision. But the reality was I had spent the best part of £30,000 on an office on Colmore Road that sat empty for 6 months. And there's a decision to be made there. And obviously we were having a good pandemic, so it wasn't this is awful, I need to save money. And we've not had government help, no one's been on furlough. We are very much, it has been business as usual in this unusual state. So that wasn't the decision. What I did make a decision was with the team, and actually a team that never wanted to work from home suddenly was like, there is something in this home working thing. And I was like, yep. And actually in between the lockdowns, we were working together kind of once a week. And it's that hybrid model. I don't think it's the death of the office. You know, I got loads of backlash from people who were like, it's agencies like yours who are going to be the death of city centres. No, it's not. And if city centres are, if Pret relies on commuters and doesn't do anything to entice people in, apart from that, it's not my fault their business model is lazy. And that's the same goes for a city centre. It goes to destination marketing. Like, city centres, much like high streets, you know, suddenly the high street in the pandemic, your local high street was your saviour because it was the only thing you could access. But suddenly you've seen new independents come in, new retailers, there's like residents forums. Suddenly they've started to create these little ecosystems.
Yeah.
And the same goes to city centres. Not having offices permanently with permanent staff in there Monday to Friday 9 to 5 doesn't mean no one's going to go to cities. Actually, people will go and spend more time there. You know, I would never ever go into the city centre at the weekend when I worked there all week, whereas now I'm more likely to go and have an actual shopping trip and have lunch and do things that, you know, I guess tourists would do. And it's that same thing. You have to have compelling reasons to bring people in. So for me, the remote working model is not the death of the office. I think it is a hybrid way of working. I think it's about understanding the team and when should people come together? When do they want to come together? But actually them feeling okay with not, you know, and for me, there's a piece around like staff retention, because I said, you know, I want it in the future that someone's, I don't know, like in Dubai and someone's in New York and someone's sitting in their local coffee shop. I want our team meetings to be like that rather than, you know, so one of the team, she said in her last appraisal, I've really just got this thing that I want to go and work in Berlin for a month. And I'm like, you can do that, you know, you can do that. So whereas before she might never have said it, and then she might have left the business thinking that that's not a thing the business could or would support. And so for me, flexible working, it's not about working at home in isolation. That's what we've been forced to do. It is about just having a different way of working, having the commute and going into an office when you want to. Equally, having a bit of freedom that allows you to experience new things, but just be more creative in different spaces. So, you know, for us, I am sure there will be an office at some point. What we have had is the benefit of, you know, lots of people in between those lockdowns were forcing their teams back, had that weird transition of people off furlough and all those things. We've not had to juggle any of that. Our team has been steady and stable because they worked from home the week before lockdown and they are still working from home now. And we've had those times when we've come together, but actually we've done more as a team. So like a couple of us met and we were doing like Zumba in a car park together. A couple of the team were doing Couch to 5K together. So we have found ways to have that connectivity, but we've also then put mental health and well-being at the front of centre of everything we do, because we don't have what would be considered the water cooler conversations or spotting that someone doesn't look great or feel great. You have to be proactive about that. So I love the new way of working. I think once Boris lets me out my house, I'm going to be a real happy girl. But because I just need a coffee shop. I just need brunch somewhere, anywhere. But it's that freedom, and you know, for me, freedom, it means adventure and creativity, and not being tied to one space, but feeling like you have that space. So it's exciting. I love it.
That's great.
Nice. So just before we shoot off, I think it'd be really good for you to just tell people where they can find out more about, certainly for the smaller people, you know, what resources you're offering that they can just go and find from you guys, and what stuff they can start doing themselves. And also, you know, where they can find out more about the pocket-sized PR stuff and some of the other stuff you're doing for small businesses.
Yeah, I've been really bad at my own PR, haven't I? Apart from saying I'm a really cool boss that wants everyone working in Berlin. But yes, you can find East Village everywhere. So East Village PR on all of the social media. We are always kind of shouting about cool client stuff, cool stuff for teams doing. Website is eastvillageagency.com. On there, that's where you'll find pocket-sized PR. New website is coming, watch your space.
Nice.
But so Pocket Size PR still sits under East Village. It's still the same team that delivers it, but we have a whole host of free tips, templates, how-to guides, you know, how to work with influencers and approach them, how to write a press release, how to email journalists. All of those things you will find on the East Village website. And then we've got pocket-sized PR on Instagram as well, where we put extra tips. And we are always looking for suggestions as well. So, you know, I am very typically someone who really takes for granted what I do and what I know. So sometimes I'm like, who would even need that piece of information? And then I realise everyone. So yeah, anyone, people have been DMing us randomly with, do you know what'd be really useful? This. And I'm like, cool, we'll go and create it. So yeah, so as I want it to become something that people genuinely need and find useful, and they can input ideas into, it would be really useful to have X. So that is us, and where you can find us, and I am at Tara Tomes on everything. Mostly if I'm on Instagram, but I'm on everything.
Nice. So key takeaways from me for this one are Matt and I look like craft beer drinkers who need razors, but also wouldn't be trusted as hairdressers.
Yeah,
potentially.
I'm glad you got that one.
Yeah, potentially that Pret's business model is lazy. I think those are the key things to take away. That's what's going to be in the papers tomorrow, Tara, if we have our way.
You know what? I'm all for it. You know, I'm as divisive as business over here.
You should have walked off by this point.
Yeah, exactly.
Bless Piers Morgan. It got so bad for him that he had to voluntarily resign from his job.
Imagine that. Oh, I just can't imagine.
Tough life. Listen, thanks so much for your time. Matt, I don't know if you've got any more questions.
No, I think that covered everything. It was really interesting. Thanks, Tara, so much.